Hey everybody, welcome back to the next number 8 video in my series of old art critiques. So I appreciate everybody who's watched the videos. I really thank you very much, and I hope you found them so far to be informational and educational. That's been my goal with these series of videos. With my background in art education and the art classes and things that I took throughout the years, I really have come to love and value art critiques. I feel it's the best way for you to learn and grow as an artist, is to have somebody looking and giving you advice and tips and things, because it's hard to look at what you've done, which you have an innate ownership of, and there's emotions tied to it, work into it. Somebody externally can look at that and say, instead of doing A, maybe B would have been better. And if you're open to that, it can really help to accelerate your learning curve when it comes to that. So it's something I enjoy doing, is looking at other people's art and sharing advice and things that I think could help them be better. And so twofold. One, currently I don't have anybody's art to look at. So I thought, why not look at my own, right? We're going to look at mine, the older stuff, and there's so much that I've learned that I can almost look at it like it's somebody else's artwork and be critical of it. And then also to give you a feel for, if I do videos, in the future here where I'm reviewing other people's artwork, portfolios, and things like that, you see where I'm coming from. I'm somebody that I'm willing to if I can dish it out, I can take it too, and that's part of what this is about. So today I'm going to show you the next set of pages that I did, and for the next project. So again, this was kind of that mid 2000s, maybe 2010-ish, 2011, somewhere in there maybe. So at this point, I had been doing comic book conventions. I had a couple of indie published works out in the world that people had seen. I had started to make some contacts with people and explain, this is what I'm doing, and they'd seen my work. So I was starting to get some interest. People were reaching out to me about projects. And most of the time, when you're starting out, you are going to get a lot of offers, probably, of people who want to publish you or use your artwork, use you to get their stuff done, and they're going to offer you exposure, or they're going to offer you stuff on the back end, which basically turns out to nothing. I can tell you, I to date have never made a dime off of any of those kinds of projects. So it's something to be wary of. If you have the time to commit to drawing art, making pages, making comics, and you're willing to do it for the exposure or just the experience, that's great. Go ahead. These are, self-publishers, indie publishers, they're always looking, for new artists who are willing to put in that time. On the flip side of that, if you don't have it, or if you're, because a single page on average is, a day. That's the going plan for, if you're looking to do professional comic book art, you would be doing minimally 1 page per day. And so I equate that to an 8-hour workday. So if you're going to fit an 8-hour workday into everything else that you have in your life, you should be compensated. That's my opinion. If so if you did something and somebody was to pay you for that page, factor in your own time. Don't shortchange yourself. If you're putting in 8 hours of work, think about how much you would get paid per hour doing something else, because it is a job. If you sign a contract or you commit to it, it is a job. So in any case, artists, something to think about, something I like to share with folks who maybe aren't into the publishing world yet, where they're familiar with how the business works. It is something to think about. So this project was one that was a back-end project. This was one where it was a not a self-publisher. This is an indie publisher who to this day is still publishing. You can buy a comic from them on Comixology or other digital methods. Um, and the contract was to do a project, and then it was going to be based on the money was going to be based on revenue after the sales. And it didn't happen, and I think through some of the pages, maybe you'll see why. The story was not what I expected it to be. Um, the whole project was kind of crazy, and I'll get into that as we look at the pages. So anyway, here we go. I'm going to set these up, and we're going to take a look at the pages in just a minute. Okay. So here we go with the pages, and I'm going to be going over some. I'll zoom in on panels, and in fact, I'm going to be sort of drawing over some of the things that I'm trying to point out. Normally, I wouldn't do that on an original page, which is it. This is the original pencil page, but at this point, I have no attachment to these. Again, because the project was not a pleasant experience. In fact, it was after I did this, it was maybe 3 or 4 years before I took on another sequential project. And there's more to it than just this. And I'll get into that at some point in the video. But here we go. So this is my initial page, and this was full script. So I've discussed it before in other videos, but what that means is the script that I got was told me exactly what to put on the page, in which panel, and how big the panels were going to be, and everything. So in this particular case, it was panel 1, establishing shot. It's like an office building area with one of the buildings called Sunshine Capital Life. Has to have it on the building. The building is dilapidated. Some of the windows are boarded up. That was in this. That was in the description. Next, row after row of empty cubicles in an office. Next panel, guy sitting at his desk. He's talking on the phone. You can see, and then specifically in this shot was antiquated computer, and I think there was supposed to be some information on the screen. I forget, but that would have been done by the letterer. So one of the things I will talk about just in general before I zoom in is these are tight pencils. This is what we would call tight pencils. Everything is there. All the shading is there. Every line is clean. You'll see when we go in, you will not see any of the structured lines. Everything has been erased and cleaned up. Basically, I penciled with ink, so every line is the finished final line. So as an inker, there isn't a lot there necessarily to add into. An inker could come in for sure and improve some things and maybe add textures or expand on the lighting and things like that. But as far as the detail work, I've done all the detail work. And what ended up happening with this project was scanning the pencils and sending them in. Originally, this was supposed to be. That was part of the deal. I was told I was going to do the pencils, somebody else was going to come in and do the inks, and then there was going to be full color. And what ended up happening was, so that's why I did the pencil so tight, because I didn't know who was going to be inking. And without building a relationship with an inker as a penciler, you don't want to assume that they're going to be a good finisher, that they're going to be able to take rough shapes and rough stuff and finish it. I don't have anything to show right now to give you an example of roughs, but nothing to show at the moment. But anyway, the point is, I did these as clean and as tight and as finished pencils as I could, and the publisher ended up decided after the fact to not do these. But these did not go to an inker. They colored over the top of the pencils. which was not what we had agreed to, and it was not the way I wanted the finished product to look. So, but these are what you would call tight pencils. So that's why they're so clean and you'll see finish as we do it. So we're going to go to the top one here, and I'm going to talk about an old topic that you've heard me talk about if you watch the videos over and over and over again, which is perspective. And in this particular case, the perspective here is wrong. It doesn't match up. And the reason it doesn't is because I did not do a perspective grid to make sure that everything was in line together. And here's your problem. So these lines, basically, every line should end up going off to the distance to a vanishing point. So where all the lines would converge together until eventually you can't tell the difference between the two lines. So here you've got this is good. It's this building in the back here. These lines are going this way to a vanishing point. It's over here somewhere. These lines are going back this way. That is okay. And this here looks kind of like it's close that this line here would line up and go off to say the vanishing point is here. But so this is the, let's say, so this line goes to this vanishing point. This line kinda, and then so your point stays the same, but the lines can go, see, they go down like this, and they don't quite line up. So here, I'll do a little overdraw for you. So realistically, if this is your vanishing point to this side, and then everything has a 2-point perspective, so there's 2 vanishing points. So this line should be here, which is pretty close. And then this top line like this. And you can see the further you go, the more off it becomes. Right? What's off a centimeter at the top becomes off much further. But this would be, now this building would be in correct perspective if I was doing it. Now, I would have to keep this point because everything goes to the same vanishing point. So now this building over here to match and be in the same perspective so that these buildings are in the same perspective has to be like this. Again, I'm just keeping that same point as a pivot and moving around and going, okay, now this goes like this. And you see parts of it are close, which is why it's not, those two buildings aren't too bad. They don't look too weird. The one that looks weird is this to this. So your vanishing point for things going in the other direction is back over here. So instead of these lines going up, these lines should be coming down. Right, so let's pretend for a minute that my vanishing point, and I'm going to get a longer ruler to show. So if my vanishing point is going to be way out over here off the page, but I'm just going to do that same thing. I'm going to pivot it. I'm going to pivot my ruler and show you. So if I keep that here, that's more in line with what that should be. And then I'm going to pivot it up to here to this one. Now this is going to start to be straighter. And then this one is going to start to come down. Right? Because everything is moving to that vanishing point off in the distance. And then I would do the exact same thing. So if this is my piece here, then this same building follows it has to go to the same vanishing point. And now these lines are going to go here. So now this doesn't go back up. But now, by doing it this way, everything these three buildings would now be in the same perspective again. So your window sits, the windows just come down vertically. Yes. Okay. And it's all the same. I mean, you still have the same. You can have the same sign. You can have the same structure of the building. You can have this broken window. You can boarded up windows. That's fine. But by doing it this way, now this part is in perspective. And then if I wanted to do this concrete piece here where it's supposed to be like big block, again, it's just following the exact same line. So and it's funny because these do seem to all right. My vanishing point is over here, and I'm just rotating the ruler, and it seems to line up pretty well with that. So that would then these now are in the right perspective with the way I've redrawn the building. So I know it's a lot of on just this one panel and this perspective idea, but I can't tell you how important it is because when you're drawing, especially something like this is your establishing shot. This is the first thing that everybody sees in the comic book. This is the first panel, the first picture. It's very important that you get this right and establish that this is the world, this is the piece, and if you don't draw it correctly, it's going to throw that reader off. So perspective, I can't underline how it's, once you understand it, it's not complicated. It can be a little time consuming to draw out all the lines and make sure you've got your ruler where you want it to be and all that, but it is totally worth it because when it's wrong, you recognize it immediately and it throws you right off. So this second panel here, not bad as far as the design of, you've got some pillars, right? Because that happens in buildings. You have the structure things. We've established that there's a line of windows, so we've got windows, some filing cabinets. But again, I don't know if the perspective here is correct. So again, there's a couple things that look a little weird, but so if my vanishing point again is going to be way out to the side, so let's assume that this first line is what we want. We're just going to pivot it out. So that's a little bit off, and then this is the one that's wet next. If my vanishing point, let's see, vanishing point is way out further. Yeah, they're still off. So what it tells you is at this point, I was close, but it's just a little bit off. And you can see it right in this part right here. So see how, in theory, the way it looks, this distance between here to here would be the same as this distance between here to here, as far in perspective. So it's going to look wider here because this is closer to us, but this is way too tight. So this little aisle here is funneling down. Again, this one's not as grievous as this building perspective was, but it could be better. And then I think is the cubicle part of it. I think you would get that it's these are empty cubes. Let's see here. And then the guy. So here, yeah. I noted when I was looking at this before that I gave him these little wristbands. This was done at the time when like the Lance Armstrong Live Strong bracelets and stuff were all the rage, and everybody was wearing those rubber bracelets. So yeah, so that's what that's supposed to be, and then very hipster chin beard. But yeah, otherwise this isn't too bad. I've actually drawn a real chair, right? There's the pieces of the chair with the molded arms. Um, the part here, what I could have maybe added, and this is little stuff. It doesn't affect the story. You've got these little levers and stuff sometimes. It just adds an element of realism that makes you go, okay, that's a real chair. The shadow, I would say probably at this point, I think I would have extended the shadow more, right? Because we've established that this is shadow under here. So why would there be a little gap of light there? So I would just shadow that. Just shadow that. So that the cubicle's casting its own little bit of shadow from whatever fluorescence above it. I would probably drop, because this is supposed to be like a little cabinet area above him. So I'd probably drop this shadow down further, and that would help. That would help to add some depth to make this sticks out further. Yeah. So otherwise, not too bad. Um, I would say one of the things that I've noted, I think just in general, I would go heavier with the shadow. Again, I didn't know who was inking, so that's where an inker might come in and add a lot more shadow. But don't be afraid to shadow some stuff up, to add some uh, black areas to your drawing, um, because that's what we see, and that adds contrast and interest. Under his shirt here, I had some just hatching lines. Why not make it dark and then hatch that out there? Definitely bring that down. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of, in general, I think I left it very open. I don't know, I was thinking color, leaving it open for the colorist, or like I said, leaving it open for an inker. But yeah, I think that's. If I was going to go back and do that now, I would definitely do more shading. Not much to say about this one. The computer, uh, kind of an old styly computer where you turn it on by turning on the monitor, the plug. It's not bad. I kind of like this piece. One of the things I will say, and I don't think I've talked about these before, there are tools that I didn't have back then that I have now that would help you with something where you're trying to draw a line, but it's not a straight line, and that is this. This is called a French curve. So there's a bunch of these. They come in packs, sets that you can get. They're templates, and you can see there's all these different types of curves on them. And so you just kind of figure out what you want, where along this device has the right curve you want, and you can just use it. It's basically like a ruler, but it's curved, right? And then if I flip it around and do it on the other side down here, I can get a nice, matching curve in a nice line. So um, I did it by hand. It was okay. But French curves, they're not super expensive. You can get them online through different drafting websites and things like that. Highly recommend them because they come in a kit with all kinds of different sizes. So you have big ones like this, big long curves, small ones, and it's not that you're not going to trace it like this and say and go, well, I want this exact curve all the way, but you're going to use I want this little curve here. I want this piece. So I'm going to move it and keep going, and build your curve out. So French curves really help you to work. So next page, out here. Okay. So the next page, let's go. So the next page, a little more storytelling. So the guy is on the phone, and he leans out of his cubicle. He's the only person around. We've established that the office is empty except for this one guy, and now there's this creepy, weird guy all dressed in black just standing there. And he's like, I think I see him. He's like, oh, better pretend I'm busy. And the guy doesn't walk by, and he peeks back out, and now the guy is gone. So, and then he's telling somebody, yeah, whoever's talking on the phone, yeah, this place is super weird. I don't know what's going on. And then we have this hand is getting the blade out of the paper cut. And again, I didn't create any of this story, any of this stuff. I was told exactly panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, panel 4, panel 5. This is what you draw. The only choices that I had was maybe like the angle, how I wanted to, what, and sometimes what size the panels were. Sometimes it'd be like this panel's a third, a third, a third, or they would tell me like this is a half the page or whatever. So it was very structured. I didn't have a lot of storytelling um, room here. So I do want to I will zoom in further, but for right this second, I just want to point this out, and this is something that I know now that I didn't know about then. So these panels are pretty similar, right? We've got just the guy on his phone, and this guy, and then the dude here. One of the things you can do, so I redrew it, right? So I drew this, and then I drew this. And you can tell it's a little bit different, so that, right, you can see the tops here, because it's really hard to draw something exactly the same twice. With exact measurements and stuff, again, unless you have a whole grid out. So one of the things you can do, if you have a panel and you want to reproduce that panel here, um, you can do what's called static. So you would draw this panel and basically say, I want to reproduce this, but maybe without the guy in the middle. And instead of redrawing it by hand, you write stat panel 1, less figure or whatever. And basically what you do is they just take a picture of this panel and just copy, especially with Photoshop today, you just copy, paste it, make whatever changes you want. So, now I want to take his hand down, that's easy enough. But then I wouldn't have to redraw the background. So statting a panel from one to another, it's the same, it's an easier way than redraw. But if you're young and starting out, and it's not always a bad idea to go through it manually and learn the process. So here, so leaning out, backs of heads and figures can be a little bit tough. We don't see it a lot. It's not something we reference a lot, but you know what? I like the way that came out. I like this figure. So later in the book, this guy, he's supposed to be this creepy old guy. Every time I drew him, I made his proportions very weird on purpose. He's got these real sloping shoulders. And then I always drew his eyes black, almost like a skull, like he's supposed to be dead. The shading is okay. Um, I would say so. These are supposed to be like the sides of the cubicle and then inside these other cubicles. This could have some more in here, either hatching this maybe, and then maybe down here have it solid black, just to help push the back wall of this of these cubicles, back a little further. Because right now it's so open, unless with color, you can do it with color, but again, my rule is always you want to be able to tell what's going on in black and white. You don't want to have to rely on the color, because there's no guarantee, especially with indie publishing, self-publishing, or whatever, that you're going to be able to get color or good color. So make sure it's recognizable in black and white. So I would have done that, and again, talked about more, more this way, just creating more lighting that it's coming from that fluorescent lighting above. Two, I like it. Again, he's with his computer. I think the face is pretty good. Have a lot to do with it to say about this one. I think it works for me. I like his eyes, the facial expressions here. Could be a little more expressive maybe. But I do like how this panel is on top of this panel, and this panel is also on top, so it's a nice framing piece here. Um, again, I'm okay with this, and then the same. I would have whatever changes I made to these. I would do the same here. Um, the guy being gone, I like that. Um, maybe if we're showing that there's the light is this sort of fluorescent from above. Maybe I would do that. The light fixtures, those crazy fluorescent office light fixtures, something like that. And then again, this was pretty good expression. Talking about this guy's crazy. I don't know what's going on. Um, again, not knowing color, I didn't know what we were doing. If I knew that this was going to be colored and done well, instead of making this all black, I might have left this open for the colorist to add something which could, help with the mood and the storytelling, because it doesn't have to be anything in particular. Um, this part here, so this was a little challenging. So the idea is, this is one of those where the writer writes something that you don't know how to draw in one panel. So it's supposed to, the description of the panel was the old creepy guy in black takes the blade off of the paper cut. Well, how do you draw somebody? You can draw them with a which I did. There's a screwdriver and screws here. You could draw them doing that, but would you understand that he's then wielding it as a knife, like a machete? So this is what I came up with, was the hand holding it, and then the screwdriver and screw in the back, giving you the impression like, okay, I get it. This is right. This is the paper cutter. This is the arm. Um, this I'll show us. This is a terrible tangent. So tangent is when you want two lines kind of line up together and blur out the distance. So if you had like your hands together like this, it looks like there's one hand. You offset them, you can see the depth of two hands. So here, what I should have done is made either the handle for the paper cutter had to be going that way, so you can see it in the background, so that helps separate the two. That's one way we can do it there. So the whole handle. The other thing for this, this is so much dead real estate right here. And I don't believe there was going to be a ton of word balloons and stuff. So I don't know why that's there. This should be now the blade. So the whole thing is going to be set up by the blade. So what I would have done is I would have drawn my blade as big as I could first, and been like, okay, you can see it's got a sharp edge, and that's why he's got it that way. Then put the hand here, with the old, bony knuckle, and then there's a weird twist to the arm. So like if you look at your arm, if you were going to hold that, how you would be holding it that way. So if you want to hold something upside down like that, then I would say the arm is going to be more straight on here. Flat here. So that's what I would have done differently there. Push this to the foreground, fill up this space. You're showing more of what's going on back here. I like the safety is no accident. Thing in the back, I don't know if that was in the script or not. And then this is the last page that we're going to look at today. So the guy is still on his phone, complaining. I don't know what the heck this was all about. We see the guy is walking now with the blade. He's talking. So we have a panel of blood splattering across the page, and this guy, poor fella, has lost his head, and now the old guy, is dragging away the body. I'm trying to remember again in the script if I'm assuming that you don't see the guy's face clearly. I think right because there's a reason. Normally, you would not cut this off right here. That doesn't make any sense unless we're trying to hide that face. You would either make the figure fit all the way so you can see the head and everything, or you would zoom in really close and just see this. So I think that had to be part of the script, because otherwise it just doesn't. So let's see here. And what you'll see, so this particular book, this page is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 panels. That is the motif. It ends up being let me see, it's at least a 60-page book. Maybe, I don't remember if it's a 60 or 80-page book. It was supposed to be split into multiple issues. It came out as one large issue, and almost every page was written as 6 panels. So all I could do was figure out different ways of arranging 6 panels, which turned into some very boring storytelling, to be honest. So, yeah. Part of what really turned me on this project. So the guy's still talking, he's leaning back, so he's not paying attention to what's happening. The guy's coming closer. Now again, I didn't know who was inking this. But so that's why I did, there's this real thick line here. This is breaking the panel borders, which I think that's cool. I like it. But I think the idea was, hey, inker, just kind of really emphasize that. But I think I would just kind of, if I was going to ink it myself, I would just continue that real heavy line there. Probably just really give this guy a real heavy outline. And why not, right? The other thing is, he's supposed to be getting closer to this guy. I might, so he's back there. I'm trying to think of how he would be sitting in his cubicle, but making chair. Something like to that effect that you would see he's heading in that direction. Like right now, he's just walking. And again, maybe that was in the script. It's possible that the guy is walking past empty cubicles, and that's what the writer wrote. And that was not to be viewed. So it's hard to say. I like the pacing isn't bad. I think that's pretty good. It's not a bad profile shot of the character. Again, just on the phone. How many ways can you draw somebody talking on the phone? And this was very early. So I remember originally I drew him with like a flip phone, and I was like, no, I'm going to draw him. He's got one of those new smartphones. Like he's supposed to be a hip kid. He's supposed to be young in his 20s. Like I'm going to give him a smartphone, and that was a big deal at the time. As opposed to a flip phone. Nowadays, he'd be on Bluetooth, he'd be on earbuds or something, and he wouldn't hold his hand up to his head on. The blood splatter stuff isn't bad, but it's very vertical, and I think what I would do from a storytelling perspective, if I was to redo this in, is I would do more of an arc. Right? So that the arc displays motion, shows that this knife is going across, it's splattering all over. Yeah, I would definitely do more of that arc to get some more motion. The straight across just doesn't read as motion to me. I like that. This one, so you see the aftermath. We've got splatter on the cubicle wall. You've got dripping off of the blade. The guy in the background is cool. The head is fine. You don't need this stuff. I don't need these weird motion lines showing that the head is bouncing around. I've got his body, and if I remember correctly, he's still, whoever's on the other line on the phone is still going, hello, hello, hello. Um, so that's why it's key that I'm showing that he's holding on to the phone. But obviously, his head is here, his body's here, this, and then, let's see, it's a little light, but there's blood coming from, I guess, like the neck. And I would have that really do this to show that motion. I use the blood to show the motion, and then you don't need motion lines, right? So that's it. Show it, don't tell it. It is a much better way to go. Um, so that's what big difference I would do there. Um, and then again, all this stuff goes away. Don't need that junk. And then here, like I said, I believe it was in the script that you just never see the guy's face. So hence the cut here. Okay, the shading is supposed to be all in black, going into a black doorway. Could be wider. I know it's a tight panel, but like I've got some space over here showing the door. Move the door facing over. Put the doors opening a little bit this way, and then make that a slightly wider door frame. So this would all be black as well. So it's subtle. It's not a big deal, but this feels just the doorway feels offset because it's hard to see that this is the open door that he's walking past. And then you've got to do some hinges, something that reads door a little more. But otherwise, it feels like he feels oversized and the doorway feels very narrow. Um, or just don't even need the door. You just do black, all black. But yeah, um, and that's it for this one. These are the pages I wanted to show you from this project. Like I said, it was tough. There's only so many different ways you can draw 6 panels of action. There were a lot of things where it was written. You could tell the person who wrote it was trying to write originally for like TV or a movie or something because there was motion in panels, right? Like the guy who walks into the room, turns on the light, and sees somebody sitting in the room, and that's all in one panel. Well, I can't do that because I can't change the lighting, I can't go from black to light, I can't show the motion. Things are captured images in comics. So that was tough. The communication problems with the publisher were tough. It just was a thing where, the lesson I learned is read the whole script before you agree to anything. Make sure you understand the whole story and the details as far as the production goes. Is this going to be inked? Okay, who's it going to be inked by? Because I want to talk to that person. Am I inking it? Is it going to be color? Who's coloring it? What kind of color? The colors that ended up on this book were almost like airbrush. It was somebody obviously who, in my opinion, did not have a lot of coloring experience. It was done very haphazardly, and doing it over the pencils didn't do anybody any justice. So again, lessons learned, experiences learned. From here, like I said, I did a lot of. I went on to do more comic conventions, and with comic conventions, I got one to commissions and sketches, and I would do commissions and sketches, and I would draw prints that I would then take to the next comic convention, and then I would go do the comic convention, and then I would get a list of more commissions and sketches and things to do. And so I got in this routine and never didn't have a chance to get back to good storytelling, good comics. Like I said, for several years after that. But I did. Eventually, I got to a point where I did get another project. It was a project with somebody that I trusted. It was a writer who wrote to an artist's strengths, to my strengths. I was given a different style, so more of a plot where they would tell me on this page, here are the things that happen. But I can do that. If I can do that in 2 panels, that's up to me. If I need 20 panels to do it, that's up to me. Um, so it was much more rewarding artistically. Uh, I inked, so after this project, I got to a point where I began inking all of my own work, which I'm doing to this day. I would not be opposed to working with another inker um, down the road, but it's a relationship you have to build. I certainly enjoy doing that. Um, but again, just kind of took all the things I learned from here and moved on. And so the next video, or one of the next videos that I want to show, is some of the more recent work and some of my newer projects and things that have been going on, and you'll see what's happening. I also want to do, I'm going to be doing a video just on portfolio review. So when you are showing your work to another artist, to a publisher, to an editor, to a writer, what are you showing? What are they looking for? Here's what you do. Here's what not to do. So again, thank you very much for watching the video. I really appreciate all of the support. Thank you so much. Um, I hope you enjoy. I hope it's educational. If you have any questions, certainly leave comments in the videos. If you want to reach out to me on social media, it is just Jerry Rasco on Facebook, Instagram, um, and of course YouTube. And please enjoy and stay safe. And we will be talking to you again soon. Thank you.